Hello everyone and welcome to episode 4 of Film Music Moments with me, Carl Corbin. Today we're going to be looking at Avengers Endgame with music scored by Alan Silvestri. Now most of you will know Silvestri for scoring the majority of the Avengers franchise except Avengers Age of Ultron, and I'm going to try as hard as I can to only look at Endgame. However, I will be referencing back to other films that he scored. Silvestri has also scored films such as Ready Player One and Captain America the First Avenger. Now, what I want to focus on today is the use of recycling music that has already been written. Something that Silvestri does a lot throughout his three Avengers films, and he does it very, very well. Now, the first example I want to look at is just after the portal scene I played at the beginning of this video. It's a scene in which Scarlet Witch comes down and has an insane battle with Thanos. Her power level is way, way increased. And the music is played in octaves. It sounds a bit like this. And I remember when I first saw this scene, I was like, wow, the music fits this scene incredibly. It's amazing. Like, everything is in time. It works fantastically. The drama is all there. And then a couple, probably days later, I went back and watched the first Avengers film and realized that this exact musical cue is pretty much right at the beginning of the film when Loki is escaping with Hawkeye and the Tesseract in a tunnel chase. And I was like, hold on. Been used like years before. I was like, it's incredible that this exact same piece of music can come into a completely different scene and be just as dramatic. And the second one I want to look at is in Avengers Endgame. It's Tony Stark's Iron Man sacrifice. Now, in the first Avengers film, you may remember that Stark carries a nuclear missile into a wormhole in the hope to get rid of all the aliens on Earth. And the music, again, is very dramatic and tense, and it's also used when Stark is attempting to rip the Infinity Gauntlet off of Thanos' arms, and it sounds a bit like this. Now, obviously, I only have two hands, so I can't play all of the instruments that Silvestri used in that scene, but you can tell just by the way I attempted to play it that he uses a huge scale from right down here to all the way up here, and it's dramatic tension. You can probably remember the scene when we find out that he's got the stones on his hands himself, and the drama that created. Now, one of my favourite things about Avengers Infinity War is that it doesn't use the typical Avengers theme as much as the original and Endgame. One of my favourite takes on it is actually during the Wakanda scene. They're battling the aliens you've most likely seen. And instead of having the typical thing, it sounds a bit more like this. In and out of different keys, and I think that's wonderful. I mean, it takes away, it's not necessarily completely different, but you can tell that it's a variation on the original theme. And I could talk for ages and ages about the different ways that Silvestri has recycled music that is written in previous films, just for Endgame. I mean, the cue that Captain America uses when he picks up Mjolnir for the first time, that's actually picked up from Captain America the First Avenger. I mean, small details like that I think are really, really clever on Silvestri's part. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is Stark's funeral scene. The music is honestly amazing. It's very emotional. It sounds a bit like this. by me just playing it on the piano, you can hear how emotional it is. Even if you haven't seen the film, it's an emotional piece. And what I love about the piece is that it's played in many different instruments, from violin to piano to acoustic guitar at the end. And what's interesting about its composition is that these films most of the time play on their own until the climax of the music, its loudest point, which is at the beginning of the camera shot showing everybody at the funeral, where it's a whole string section playing, the whole string family plays. The piano, the pad, and the guitar, when they have their own respective sections, all play on their own. And I think it's a really good detail to have it sounding not necessarily desolate, it's not necessarily empty either, but it's a bit of a somber moment and allows you to connect with the music. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please let me know what you thought of the music in Avengers Endgame. I hope you enjoyed episode 4, and I look forward to sharing the next video with you. Thank you for watching.